What's up guys, MTG Matt for you, back with another video. Long time no see on this channel, I'm totally aware of this. I had an absolutely crazy month of work, but I got it behind me. And I thought, you know, what better way to come back to the channel than to give a first impression about the first, real spoilers we got for Streets of New Capenna. So for those of you who weren't aware, today was the preview stream that Wizards of the Coast regularly holds 2 or 3 weeks in advance of a new expansion. And today there was a preview stream for New Capenna, and we got a bunch of new cool preview cards, a lot of mythics also. And what I want to do in this first impression video, which I do quite regularly actually for new expansions, is there have been a bunch of cards spoiled already, and I'm just gonna give my first impressions for the most notable cards from today's previews. I'm not really doing set reviews or anything, but I like to do the first impressions videos, and then when the previews for a new set have finished, I also like to showcase some cards that I think will have the most impact on the meta. But for now, let's do the first impression video, and I'm gonna go through the cards I picked out from today's previews in ascending rarity, meaning we're gonna start with the only common that I want to mention from today's previews, which is Strangle. It's a 1-mana sorcery in red, and it says Strangle deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So this is a very efficient removal spell. It's obviously comparable with Frostbite, so Frostbite can also deal 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker at instant speed. However, it only deals 3 damage if you have 3 snow permanents, and if you look at the current meta now, nobody is really playing snow mana ever since Faceless Haven got banned, and the Ether decks who might be interested in running something like Frostbite, they don't run Snowlands because, you know, they rather have something like a Dragon's Fire as a removal spell, which is also very efficient. So I do think that Strangle could find a home in decks like Rakdos Sacrifice, which really focuses on, flattening the board with small creatures, doing like small pieces of damage, and then at the end you kill your opponent, right, with these small pieces of damage. And those kinds of decks, it's really nice to have some very efficient removal where you can pay 1 mana for Strangle to kill a creature your opponent has, and then on a turn 2 you have still 1 mana left to play another 1-drop, right? Those are the kind of play patterns where a card like this could really shine. Apart from that, I think that's really the only types of decks that would want Strangle, because if you're playing a more control-y style of deck in red, you would rather play instants. So in those decks it would probably not find a home, but in those other decks where you're really about efficiency, playing small creatures, I think this could definitely be a playable card. Next up, we got the only uncommon that I want to mention from today's preview, which is Courier's Briefcase. It's a 2-mana artifact treasure, and when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. As all treasures, you can sack it to add a mana of any color, and then also you have the mode of you pay Wooburg, tap it, sacrifice it to draw 3 cards. Now, this card is basically another Prosperous Innkeeper in Standard, because Prosperous Innkeeper has the exact same mana cost. It's a 1/1 and also creates a treasure. And the only difference is that, well, Prosperous Innkeeper is a creature, right? On the actual card, it's a creature, not an artifact, unlike Courier's Briefcase. And then Prosperous Innkeeper gives 1 life whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control. Whereas Courier's Briefcase has this option that if you can somehow manage to get Wooburg, you can sack it to draw 3 cards, which gives us some more late game viability. Now, I want to note 2 things about this card. First of all is having more cards in the game in Standard that let you effectively ramp at 2 mana can be a big deal. I recently played a Selesnya midrange list that whose whole game plan was to have a lot of 2-mana ram spell like Prosperous Innkeeper, for example, right? Or this like instant speed channel mana dork from New Capenna, so that you could play a 4-drop on turn 3. That was the whole game plan. And with cards like this, like the more cards like those are in standard, the easier this game plan becomes. So Courier's Briefcase could definitely find some play. And also, we're gonna get basically the triumphs from my Courier, right? For all the colors of the 5 like mob families, which means that I think once New Capenna drops, we're gonna be in a standard where it will be rather easy to maybe run 5 colors, right? To somehow splash 5 colors, or you just run the World Tree. So in that case, this can also draw a few cards. So pretty cool, neat little card. Could support some kind of 5-color archetype, and yeah, pretty cool card. So now we got the commons and uncommons out of the way. We come to the rares, right? And we start off here by Cut of the Prophets. Pretty cool flavor and really crazy art, actually. And it's a sorcery in black. You pay X black. It's got casualty free, which is a new mechanic for I think for the Riveteer. This is supposed to be a Riveteer mechanic. So Riveteers are Junt, so green, black, and red. And casualty says, as you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater. When you do, copy the spell. Oh no, this is actually in the Maestro's mechanic, which is Grixis, so blue, red, and black. Alright, so as you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater. When you do, copy the spell. So if you have a creature lying around with at least 3 power, you have the option to sack it to copy that spell. And the spell says that you draw X cards and you lose X life. Now I think this card is actually a pretty big deal for standard, just because of the fact that I was recently watching a video from Crokies, where he was playing some Golgari midrange, and a problem he would run into with this type of deck is that he would really be missing good card draw, right? And Cut of the Prophets is pretty good. I mean, it gets better the later the game goes on, but then also because of this casualty mechanic, you can copy it. So let's say you have a 3-power creature and you just pay X equals 2. For 4 mana, you can sacrifice a creature, draw 4 cards, lose 4 life, which is not super great because you sacrifice a creature, but it's an option, right? You don't have to. You can, in the late game, you can also just, I don't know, like pay X equals 4, draw 4 cards, and you're probably pretty happy about it. So I do think that Cut of the Prophets will enable, will give black a good amount of card draw that is not focused on permanence, right? Because obviously black has Deadly Disputes, it's got Planeswalkers to draw cards, that's fine. But if you want to play card draw in a black deck that's outside of sacrificing, like that can just be a sorcery and instant, I think Cut of the Prophets will be an important tool for those kinds of decks. Next I've got Gala Greeters, which I think is a pretty neat card. So it's a 2-mana 1/1 Elf Druid in green, and it's got Alliance, which is the keyword for the Cabaretti, so like for the Naya family. It says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Put a 1/1 counter on Gala Greeters, create a tapped treasure token, or you gain 2 life. Now, for those of you who might not know, you actually need to tap treasures to sack them. So creating tapped treasures is, some limitation on how fast you can ramp with Gala Greeters, but I really like this card. So as long as you play a creature each turn, or it just says creatures, it doesn't say non-token creatures, or you just create some tokens, this can at least grow every turn by a 1/1 counter, which, those kinds of cards are usually very good. However, you have to keep in mind this is a 2-mana 1/1, right? It starts off as a 1/1, which is actually a pretty big downside if we compare it with what's it called? The 2-mana 1/1 that puts 1 encounters on a creature each combat. You know what I mean, right? The mono white staple. That card puts the counter on stuff right away, which is a lot better because when you play Galagridas on turn 2, you probably won't be able to put another creature on the board and trigger it, right? But then, from that turn on, if you can put multiple creatures on the board, you can get real value out of this, right? Obviously, it can grow by 1 counter, but I think the real deal is the tapped treasure tokens. Can really ramp for the following turns. And yeah, I think this card, you will want to run this card in a deck that has more of a mid-rangey or late game plan. Because for like an early aggro deck, I think it's probably too slow. And also like an aggro list doesn't need a 2 life. The tap treasure token also not necessarily useful because you just want to curve out and smash your opponent's face. So yeah, I'm curious to see where Galgrid is gonna end up, but I think it's a really good card, right? If you run a token style deck and you manage to put at least 2 creatures on the board every turn, even if it's just little 1/1 tokens, every turn this grows by a 1/1 counter and can create your treasure token, and in certain matchups the 2 life will also be relevant. So I think Galgrid is a pretty cool card, but I'm not certain right now in what kind of archetype it would fit. Next up we got Wiretapping. This has the Hideaway mechanic, which is the return of a mechanic. And what Hideaway does, so let's just read it. This is Hideaway 5. Hideaway also means you look at the top X cards of your library, X indicated by the number in the Hideaway mechanic, right? So in this case, you look at top 5 cards of your library, and then you exile 1 face down, and then put the rest on the bottom of the library in random order. So just exile a card from top 5 when Wiretapping comes into play. And then the effect of the card is whenever you draw your first card during each of your draw steps, draw a card. Then if you have 9 or more cards in hand, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So the Hideaway mechanic always lets you fetch or like exile a card from top of your library. And then if a certain condition is met, you can play that card. I think you can probably either play it or play it without it paying its mana cost, right? So this card, I think it's probably going to be too slow, right? Because this is 5 mana. And it actually doesn't do anything when it comes into play. Because sure, you hide away, but hide away without the payoff isn't doing anything except for exiling a card. So yeah, this is probably gonna be too slow. It draws you an extra card in every draw step, which is obviously neat. But at 5 mana, it's just too much to ask these days, right? You could just play a really nice creature or play a Planeswalker that maybe draws a card, so or like has another kind of better impact. Yeah, Wiretapping is probably not gonna make the card in standard, but I still wanted to mention it, and I think the flavor is really cool. Next up, we got Devilish Valet. 2 and a red for 1/3 Devil Warrior with Trample and Haste. And it's also got the Cabaretti mechanic in Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. So this is a card that could get out of control pretty fast if you can put 1/1 counters on it and then also have creatures entering the battlefield. Obviously, he starts at just 1 power, which means if just 1 creature enters the battlefield under your control, this is just going to be a 2/3 Trample Haste for 3 mana, which is absolutely terrible. If you somehow managed, maybe you got like an Anthem effect with Wedding Invitation, so then it's already like a 2/4, and then you can put a 1/1 counter on it with like the Wandering Emperor, and then you double the power and the trample. I don't know. Now that I think about it, I think this you need to jump through a lot of hoops to make this card work. and it's probably not worth the effort. I mean, at 3 mana, just compare it with Reckless Stormseeker, right? The Werewolf, which is a 3 mana 2/3. Can also give itself haste, becomes a 3/3, and then on the Nightbound side can also give trample. I think Devilish Valet is just, yeah, it's just gonna be outclassed by other cards, because you have to jump through a lot of hoops to really make this work, because realistically, for the amount of effort you need to put in to make this work, you would want this to have at least 8 power, right? So let's say, so for 8 power, you would need to have 3 creatures enter the battlefield, right? It's 2, 4, 8. 3 creatures, which is a lot to ask. Or if you already buffed it by 1 power, just 2 creatures, then you might be satisfied, right, with 8 power, but it's a lot to ask. So I think that's probably not going to make the cut in decks. Next up, we got Jaxis Troublemaker, which is one of my favorite cards from today. It's 3 and a red for legendary creature Human Warrior. It's a 2/3. Has an activated ability. You pay red, tap, and discard a card. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. And then it got the Bliss mechanic, which is the Riveteer mechanic. So Riveteer is Junt, black, red, and green. You can play the Bliss cost, which means of 100 red, which means if you cast a spell for this Bliss cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So the Bliss mechanic means you can basically cheat out the creature for for cheaper. It also gains haste, but you have to sacrifice at the beginning of the end step, but you also get to draw a card. And I think this Bliss mechanic is actually pretty nice, because I'm really curious about the other cards we're going to see with the Blitz mechanic. And really the part of the mechanic that makes this to me immediately like an awesome mechanic is this text: when this creature dies, draw a card, right? So you cheat it out, you know you're gonna sacrifice it at end of turn, but you also know you're gonna draw a card off of it, so you're even on cards, right? Actually, I mean, how can I say, like, the nice thing about creatures is that they are permanents, right? So they can do stuff multiple turns in a row, and with the Bliss mechanic they can't. But you cast it for cheaper, and in that way it's kind of like a sorcery effect, right? It's a sorcery effect that replaces itself. I think that's a nice way to talk about it. It's like you get a sorcery effect of summoning a creature just for 1 turn, and then you also draw a card. I think that's really good. And you obviously also have like sacrifice synergies with this. So I really, really like Bliss. And talking about Jaxis, the actual card, I think is just a great effect. So first of all, you can just discard any card from your hand. So you can also discard lands if you don't need them, which is neat. And we already seen right now in Standard that Fable of the Mirror Breaker is seeing some play. And Jaxis basically has Fable's activated ability, right? More or less. It's very similar in that you create a token, but you also have to discard a card, and you have to sacrifice the creature at the end of turn, but the creature also draws you a card, which is, yeah, that's pretty nice. You can basically turn lands you don't need into another card draw. And yeah, I think Jaxis Troublemaker, I don't know right now what kind of creatures you would want to copy, but I mean, any creature you copy is actually a good creature, right, for so cheap. So I think Jaxis is pretty cool, pretty insane. At 4 mana, I wonder if you can just play it at 4, let it sit for a turn. Because I mean, the advantage of Fable of the Mirror Breaker is that it has an impact right away and gives you more value. But yeah, enough about this card. I really love this card. I think it's really cool, and it's probably gonna make cool stuff, do some cool stuff. Next up, we got Urabrask Heretic Praetor. 5 mana 4/4, so we got a Praetor, another Praetor in the set. 5 mana 4/4 with haste, so just like Goldspan Dragon. And it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile top card of your library. You may play it this turn. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, the next time they would draw a card this turn, instead they exile the top card of the library, they may play it this turn. So, Urabrask is probably really cool for like a mid-rangey aggressive deck. I'm thinking of Gruul. Right, this could like complement the 5-drop slot where you have probably 4 Goldspan Dragons, and then you can play, maybe also put 2 Urabrask in there. If it can last for a turn, it draws an extra card, which is really neat. And then the other ability with your opponent is it actually doesn't do anything, right? Your opponent in a way still draws a card. It draws their usual card that is exiled, so they just played from exile. And right now we don't have any facts in standard that like restrict from which zones you may play cards. So I'm thinking of Dreaded Magistrate from Courier, which was this 2-mana human wizard that said that your opponents can only play cards from their hand, right? If that was still in standard, this would mean that like Urabrask would exile the first card your opponent draws in a turn, and because it would be in exile, they wouldn't be able to play enough with a Dreaded Magistrate. So I wonder if in this set we're gonna get some kind of effect like that, because then this would be like pretty cool combo. Apart from that, like the second effect isn't really doing anything. Next time they would draw a card this turn, instead they exile the top card of the library. They may play this turn. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. I don't know, yeah. I mean, I guess they can like discard it now for some other effects. Yeah, all in all, I think Urabrask is a fine card. It's a cool, straightforward card. It it hastes, has an immediate impact, and then can draw you cards. But I mean, Goldspan Ring is just better in that slot, and like a big deal about Goldspan Dragon is that it's flying. Like just a 5-mana 4/4 haster in standard is not. It's not guaranteed to do something, right? If you're up against other creature-heavy decks, it will just run into them and die. So yeah, Urabrask I think just fine, but I'm not sure it's gonna see standard play. Okay, so this was the first mythic, and we start here with our first Planeswalker of the day, which is Elspeth Resplendent. I'm actually gonna have to read this out. Yeah, you can really. Maybe there is the text already. Oh yeah, no, the text is here. Perfect, after refreshing. Okay. Elspeth Resplendent, 5-mana Planeswalker, starting with 5 loyalty. It's in white. And you got 3 abilities. +1. Choose up to 1 target creature, put a Warring counter and a counter from among flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance on it. Okay, -3, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And -7, create 5 3/3 white angel creature tokens with flying. So, first off, I want to explain the shield token or shield counter. So the shield counter is a mechanic for the broker family, which is banned. So green, blue, and white. And what a shield counter does is, as long as a permanent has a shield counter on it, the next time it would be destroyed or take damage, you remove the shield counter and the damage is prevented or it doesn't get destroyed, which I think is a super good mechanic. Like, it really protects your stuff, and shield counters on creatures are gonna be awesome because it almost guarantees 2/4-1s, right? So if your opponent has a board wipe and you have a creature with a shield counter on it, your creature survives. So really only exile effects will interact with the shield counter. So talking about the -3, look at the top 7 cards. That's a lot. That's guaranteed to hit something good if you build your deck around it. And you may put a permanent card of mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter. So mana value 3 or less, it's fine. I think the reason they made it free for this set specifically is that for every family, I assume we're gonna get an Ascendancy type enchantment. So we already saw Broker's Ascendancy, which is 3 mana, and at the beginning of your end step, puts 1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. And yeah, those will probably all be 3 mana, so Elspeth can hit those. I think that's the idea behind this mana value 3. And on top of that, added, you put a shield counter on it, so it's got some protection. So that's really cool. I think the -3 is pretty neat. It makes it so that Elspeth can actually protect herself if you hit a creature, because she's not producing any tokens. I mean, with her first 2 abilities, right, which you can use right away. So Elspeth has this usual problem of she's a relatively high cost planeswalker that doesn't protect itself, except for the -3. Yeah, I don't know. So if you had just a creature with this, maybe with an enter battlefield effect, that's cool, but I'm just thinking what good creatures are at 3 mana value right now in standard. I mean, this can hit a Wedding Invitation. I think that's the big one with this. You play Elspeth, you -3, you hit a Wedding Invitation, get a token to protect yourself, and a Wedding Invitation itself. I think that's gonna be something you want to hit with this. Or we have to see how good the other ascendancies are gonna be, right? So that's one use case. Let's take a look at a +1. Choose up to 1 target creature. You put a 1 counter on it, and you choose between Flying, First Strike, Lifelink, or Vigilance. I mean, that's a good ability, no question. Except, especially because of the flexibility, right? You can give something Flying, First Strike, Lifelink is a big one. Vigilance is also cool. But you already need to have creatures out to use it. However, we already, Oath of Tokens is always a thing, so there are already decks that can ensure that you always have some creature lying around on the battlefield where you can put the counters on. So Elspeth could fit there in like an Oath of Tokens deck. And the -7, get some angels. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, 3/3s, it's good, right? But it dies really easily to even stuff like Meatung Massacre. You just need 5 mana to kill them. So Elspeth, I think she's just fine. Yeah, I'm not sure she's gonna be a big player in the meta. I mean, the -3 is pretty neat. The first thing I was thinking when I saw her was Storm the Festival, but Storm the Festival never really comes through. I mean, this is 5 mana permanent, so you could hit that. You could like Storm the Festival into Elspeth and something else. Then Elspeth fetches something else with the -3, and you got like 3 permanents on the board with 1 spell. That could be really good. But all in all, I'm not too impressed with Elspeth. Next up, got the Halo Fountain. We actually got quite some mythics today. Halo Fountain, 3 mana artifact in white. Has interesting abilities. You pay white, tap it, and untap a tap creature you control to create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. You pay 2 white, tap, untap 2 tap creatures you control to draw a card. And then you can pay 5 white, tap, untap 15 tap creatures you control, you win the game. So first of all, I want to say, actually wrote this, okay, for text. First of all, I think we can completely ignore the third ability, because this will never gonna happen in a standard game, and if it happens, if you have 15 creatures on the board, you should have won anyway, so we can safely ignore that one, which just leaves us with the first 2. And so this is a card that wants you to be attacking each turn so that you have tapped creatures, unless there is another way to tap creatures to use them, like Convoke, but that's not standard right now. So this wants you to attack each turn, right? So that you have tapped creatures that you can then untap. And I actually have no idea how viable this is in standard. So first of all, this is 3 mana, do nothing. Nothing happens when you play this, so that's already bad. And in the same slot, you got Wedding Invitation, so that's not gonna make the cut. But then let's say you play it and you untap and you attack. The payoff is for 2 mana you can draw a card. If you untap 2 creatures, that's... man. You have these untapped 2-tap creatures. I gotta say, I think this card is trash. I'm not... Like, I'm starting to think about this, but it's like you have to attack, and then your payoff is like, paid 3 mana to nothing, and then... Let's say you activate the first time, right? So you get a 1/1, you paid 4 mana for a 1/1. I think this is a terrible card. It's not gonna see play. It's just too inefficient. Alright, next up we got the Riveteer Mob Boss, Ziatora the Incinerator, 6 mana, 6/6, Demon Dragon with flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Ziatora the Incinerator deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. So let's talk about the positives first. It has an effect right away at the beginning of your end step, so your opponent can remove it, right? It's not an enter the battlefield effect. He can react, but still, if it can stick, you get an effect at the beginning of the end step, which is nice. And the effect is pretty good. I mean, the 3 treasure tokens is the big one, right? And I say that's the big one because the thing is, think about it this way. You only get high damage from Ziatora if you sacrifice a creature with high power. But if you have a creature with high power, wouldn't you rather have it stick on the board instead of sacrificing it? So, you know, like, the more value you get off Ziatora's effect, the more you also lose on the board. So that's kind of bad. And let's say you sacrifice like a spider from a Lolth. You deal 2 damage, create 3 treasure tokens. That's pretty cool. But this is really slow. Costs 6 mana. I think this won't make the cut in decks. I can't imagine this. It's just it's not doing anything by itself. You have to sacrifice another creature, so you can't even like play this as a finisher, right? Play it and then sacrifice itself to do 6 damage. That's not possible. And it's just a 6 mana. Yeah, I think it's too much to ask. I don't think it's gonna make the cut in decks. Next up, we got another Planeswalker. We got Vivien. Vivien is back. Vivien on the Hunt. 6 mana Planeswalker in green with 3 loyalty abilities plus 2. So this Vivien is really interesting. It's really, I think it's really unlike any Vivien we've seen so far, more or less. Plus 2, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a creature card with mana value equal to 1, plus the sacrifice creature's mana value, put it onto battlefield shuffle. So this is a Birthing Pot effect, right? Plus 1, mill 5 cards, then put any number of creature cards milled this way into your hand. Minus 1, just minus 1, create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token. So Vivien is very interesting. I don't really know what to make of this Planeswalker. So let's talk first about the fact it's 6 mana. That's a lot, right? It's a lot. And but you can make a 4/4 right away. So I think a good comparison would be Ren 7. Like Ren 7 costs 5 mana, makes a token that's most of the time a 5/5 with reach. That also grows over time. So right there, if you compare with Vivien with Ren 7 already is better, right? It costs 1 mana value less and puts a better token on the board. However, it also costs more loyalty abilities. And I want to note that Vivien comes into play with 4 loyalty counters, which means you can play her for 6 mana and make a 4/4. She's at 3 loyalty. The turn after, you make another 4/4. She's at 2 loyalty. And then can still make another 4/4. So you can 3 turns in a row, you can make a 4/4 and Vivien's still on the battlefield. And then you can start plus 2, right? She gains 2 loyalty. She gains loyalty real fast if you use a plus 2 ability. So that's interesting to me, right? The fact that she can, for just minus 1, create a 4/4, that's pretty big. And I think the idea here, the sneaky idea of the developers is with Broker's Ascendancy, you can put a loyalty count on her at the beginning of each end step. So every turn, if you want, you can just, you know, like push the -1, make a 4/4 every turn, and really put pressure on the opponent. And I mean, 4/4 is no joke, right? It's really good. So that's already interesting. And then she got 2+ abilities, and the second one, the +1, is card advantage, right? It's mill 5 cards, and 5 cards is a good bunch. If you have a creature heavy deck, if you mill 5 cards, realistically in a creature heavy deck, you should you're gonna hit at least 2 creatures, and I think like 50% of them probably 3 creatures. So that's then it's +1, draw 3 cards. That's really good, right? She can really provide you with a lot of gas. And then a +2 can, yeah, just search up anything in your deck if you have the right board state for it. So, Vivien on the hunt. I mean, 6 mana is a lot. And I really wonder what kind of deck this goes. I think you could build a more mid-rangey mono-green deck, right? I mean, mono-green, I haven't seen mono-green in so long actually on the ladder. But it's probably, I think, still a more or less decent deck. Mono-green is already kind of mid-rangey. But this pushes it even more into the mid-range, right? And I mean, mono-green, you keep the pressure up, and then on 6, you play this, you can reload. I mean, let's talk about the worst case scenario, right? You play this on 6 in a mono-green deck, creature heavy mono-green deck. You +1 her, your opponent immediately removes the Planeswalker, so the +1 is on the stack, and let's say you get like 2 free creatures. Then you paid like 6 mana for to draw 3 creatures, and your opponent had to use a removal spell. It's not awesome, but like card advantage wise, it's pretty cool, right? And then a +2, I don't know, the +2 is really intriguing, but I don't know in what kind, like, I think there's no deck right now that like immediately has a use for a +2, right? So this is one where you have to kind of like start brewing. But all in all, I think this is a super interesting Planeswalker. And what I really like about it is I think it could support some kind of more control-y decks in green, which I love, right? Like control mid-range decks in green is really what I like. They're like one of my favorite ideas, but it's usually not possible, and this could enable it. So Vivien on the hunt could be pretty cool. And next up, we got Falco Spara, Pact Weaver. So Broker, Mob Boss, 4 mana 3/3 Bird Demon with Flying and Trample. So that's actually pretty good creature, right? 4 mana 3/3 Flying Trample. And it's a Battlefield with Shield Counter. So it's a 3/3 Flying Trample that has built-in protection. Really good. Really good. Says you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may cast spells from top of your library by removing a counter from a creature you control, in addition to paying their other costs. So brokers, I think, have this counter sub-theme, which we've seen from Broker's Ascendancy. 1/1 counter sub-theme. They just have counter theme, I think, in general, right? Just with these shield counters already. And I think this is a pretty decent creature. If you play like a banned mid-range deck, you can play this, it protects itself, which is big, right? And then if you have 1/1 counter synergies, I think like Felidar Retreat, Broker's Ascendancy, Wandering Emperor puts 1/1 counters on creatures. Like there's so many ways to use 1/1 counters. You can just play spells from top by paying an extra 1/1 counter, which I think is a really good deal. And the question really becomes like, in what kind of deck do you play this? At 4 mana, as I said, you want to play Wandering Emperor, you want to play Esika's Chariot, but this still could find place in those decks. So yeah, Falco Spara Pact Weaver could be really nice. Even maybe in like a more control-y deck. if you think about it, as I already mentioned, you have like the Wandering Emperor, you got the new Elspeth that can put counters on stuff. You could just throw this in there as a decent creature at 4 mana, right? I mean, 3/3 it doesn't block a lot, but as I said, you can put counters on it. It protects itself, so it can even take trades, and then it can give you card advantage. So I think this is not insanely good, but it's a pretty cool card. And then the last card for today, finally, saved the best one for last. Like, this is my favorite card from today. It's Nixilis, the Adversary, another Planeswalker. And I think this might actually be all the Planeswalkers already from the set. I mean, Ajani was in the story, so but he wasn't really in the story, so I don't know if we're gonna see Ajani. Tezzeret was mentioned, but Tezzeret also already got Planeswalker in the last set, so I don't think he's gonna get another one. So this might be the last Planeswalker. Alright, so Nixilis, the Adversary, 3 mana Planeswalker, 3 star loyalty in Rakdos colors. Has casualty X, the copy isn't legendary and has star and loyalty X. So, again, casualty is actually below, so just the text. As a cast spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. When you do copy the spell, the copy becomes a token. So, you can sacrifice any creature, and you get 2 Nixilis, right? And the token isn't legendary, so you can have 2 Nixilis, which is really nice. And think about it, this is just 3 mana. It's what you can sacrifice a Shambling Gas, you can sacrifice an Eye Twitch, you can sacrifice like the 1/1 constructs on Only Cold Anvil. So it's very realistic that you can sacrifice just a 1-power creature on turn 3 and get 2 Planeswalkers, which is insane. So let's take a look at what he's doing. +1, each opponent loses to life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life, right? -2, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. I absolutely love this Planeswalker. It's so cool. The fact that for 3 mana, you can get 2 Planeswalkers that do stuff and do good stuff is insane to me. And I think really this is a kind of casualty effect where it's absolutely fine if casualty is just 1. You sacrifice a Shambling Ghast, this token comes into play with 1 loyalty, who cares, right? You can +1 and start gaining value out of it. And if we take a look at the loyalty abilities, the +1 can really put pressure on an opponent if you play this in like a Rakdos control-y type of deck. But even if you're not control-y and you're just classic good Rakdos sacrifice, these drain effects, they add up. They really add up, right? We already got like Only Cold Anvil, there's like Mito Massacres, all these drain effects, if they come together, it's really gonna threaten your opponent. Obviously in sub 1, in +1 there's also a discard theme. So you could also play this in like a discard centric deck to really make sure that you get the 2 life drain. So that's already pretty good. The -2, you know, it's a nice little creature to block. If you think about it, if you play up Nixilis on 3 and sacrifice a 1-power creature, you can use your original Ob Nixilis to immediately -2 and basically replace the creature you just sacrificed. And then you have the copy with 1 loyalty that can immediately start pressuring your opponent. So this seems to me very, very good. And Ob Nixilis will, I think, certainly find a home like Rakdos sacrifice decks, but even like, I mean, Grixis control could become a thing, right? Or Maestro's control. Even those kinds of decks, this could be really nice as just a way to pressure your opponent. And you know, have a nice win condition with those +1s, and occasionally you make a little 1/1 creature to block. You can even copy the token with Esca's Chariot. That's pretty neat. So yeah, that's my take, my first impression on the most notable preview cards from today. Really looking forward to the spoiler season. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I see you guys soon.